Hey, welcome back, Friendship Small Groups. We made it. We are at the end. This is our last video for our series in Galatians. This week at Youth Group, please come. We are going to cover the last chapter of Galatians. We are in all of chapter 6. We're putting all of it together, going through all of this and wrapping up our series in Galatians before the New Year's is out. And so for this video, we're not going to read the whole chapter, but I do want to highlight a couple of verses that we want to think about for our wrap-up of Galatians. And in this whole chapter 6, Paul is kind of giving this his final address, his final reminders to the people of Galatia of what all we have talked about. And so thinking back of what have you learned through the book of Galatians this year, talk about that amongst your groups. I hope you guys have learned something through the book of Galatians, but if not, Paul reminds us a little bit of what we are talking about today in this section in chapter 6. And so I want to focus in on a couple verses, one out of verse 7, one line out of verse 7, and one line out of verse 10. Verse 7, it says that whatever you sow, that which you will reap. And so I wanted to get this idea of thinking about sowing and reaping, and how are you living your life? What choices are you making right now that will determine the outcome of your life? Are you making choices now that determine the events that come later? How are you sowing in your life now that will then eventually reap a benefit later? Or maybe it will reap a consequence later. What is that you are going through in your life? Sowing and reaping. This concept of sowing and reaping, we're going to look at it more on Wednesday, but Paul just reminds them. Think back, all these things that we've learned and we talked about of living for God, living through faith, living your faith out in public. What does that look like? Are you living for Him? Are you sowing things in your heart and your life that will benefit later? Or are you following the world? Are you going against Him? Are you living for the flesh that we talked about last week? Are you living a life that is opposed God, that is against Him? And those things will also reap consequences later on. So this idea of reaping and sowing, Paul gets into that. But then also in verse 10, he talks about this, that when we have opportunity to do good, let us take that. Don't miss the opportunities that come. God will present things in your life. He'll bring about opportunities for you to then show what you believe, to then show your faith. We live and walk by faith. We walk in the Spirit that we talked about last week. We have this fruit that comes from the Spirit because of us living for Him constantly every day. We wake up and we say, I'm going to live for you. And when we do that in our lives, we produce this fruit of the Spirit, and we live a different life. And so when those opportunities show up, take hold of it, grab it. Don't let go of those. Don't miss them, to be able to live your faith and to show other people what you believe. And so what are you reaping and sowing, and what opportunities do you have? I want you to think about those this week. I want you to try to recognize the opportunities that are ahead of you, that get presented, that God might bring into your life, and don't miss them. Take opportunities, live for Him, remember the things that we've been talking about in Galatians, and live it out. Live out your faith. That's Paul's final address. That's our final reminder, and we're going to look at that more on Wednesday night. So come and study Galatians with me. I hope you guys have a great small group. Go around the room, talk about the things that you reap and sow, things that you opportunities that you see in your life and that you want to take hold of, and then just enjoy time together as a small group this week. Thanks for all that you guys do, sticking with me through this series of Galatians. And I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. Have a great week, guys. See ya.